Hey guys, what is going on? Shah here, and today we are taking a look at this stuff. So there was a pretty big spell and class change, tank tuning, that happened a few days ago now, and I want to react to it. I want to kind of voice my opinion. Originally, I wasn't going to. I was going to kind of wait to see if there's any more changes coming out and what some other people had to say and if it was even worth talking about. But it looks like a lot of you guys in the comment section of my last video or one of my most recent videos kept asking me, what do I think about the new changes? What do I think about this spec getting buffed? What do I think about this spec getting nerfed? Some meme stuff as well. So that's what I'm here to do. So I'm going to talk about these really quick. I'm going to kind of brush through them as fast as I can. And then afterwards, I'm going to revisit that tier list that you guys just saw. This was the tier list where we left it off. If you didn't catch that last video, just a quick recap. I had Blood DK and Monk in the A tier, Paladin and DH in the B tier, and then Warrior and Guardian Druid in the D tier. Not that I don't think they were necessarily deserving to be in the D tier, but essentially, if you missed that video, I wanted to leave out S and F tier because I think it's too early to make that decision. We obviously need to see a meta. We need to see comps. We need to see certain things like that. And there's obviously tuning adjustments all the time. As you guys can know, that video that I made 5 days ago is now completely outdated and almost irrelevant. So anyone watching it, I'm sorry. It's a little bit outdated, but I will be doing a similar video hopefully in the next couple weeks here because there are going to be new logs coming out for all the classes and specs as people play them. More beta invites are going out, so I have more information to look at. So look out for that. So if you are looking forward to that kind of stuff, if you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button down below. So we're going to jump into this reaction, I guess we'll call it that. All right, so let's start with Blood Death Knight because it's at the top. Not much changed here. So this was a small change. They made Blood Tap to a talent, which was passive, and they made Ossuary a talent passive. If that makes sense. So they swapped the two, essentially. So now, passively, if you have 5 Bone Shield charges up or more, your Death Strike is reduced by 5 runing power, and you also can have 10 more runing power in your bank. So this allows Blood DKs obviously to bank a little bit more resource to have that on-demand healing, which is really, really good. Or for Death Coil, I guess, if you want to do that. I guess if you do like Lichborn, then Death Strike, just Death Strike all the time. And then Blood Tap was changed to a talent. So this essentially generates 1 free rune for you on a 1-minute cooldown. And yeah, nothing too exciting to it. And then as Blood Shield charges are consumed, you get this cooldown reduced. So this is now a talent. It gives you some just on-demand rune generation for when you need it. I don't know if this is on the global or not, if I'm being honest, but it was a passive ability that's now in a talent. So not too many things there. And then all the other changes were made to Frost and Unholy. So nothing really to go over as much. I'm just making sure they changed Death Coil, but I think it mainly, yeah, so it had a synergy with Dark Transformation, which is an Unholy DK ability, so you don't have to worry about that at all. So Death Knight, stable tank, sitting in a good spot. I think Blizzard thinks they know where they want DK to sit, and that's where they're sitting. So we'll talk about that in a second. Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter saw probably the biggest nerfs, I would say. So Demon Hunter, I'm sorry, Demon Hunters. This is tragic. So first things first, Fell Devastation cooldown increased from 45 seconds to a minute. So what is that, like 33% increased cooldown? Pretty unlucky. Fell Devastation was a very powerful heal and had really good synergy with a talent choice. And I think, yeah, they also changed. So we're going to talk about that in a second. So they also nerfed your healing. Congratulations. So 8% down to 6% over the last 5 seconds. So if you're not familiar with how Demon Hunters work exactly, essentially as they're attacking enemies, they're generating shards from those like soul fragments, and then they use an ability to consume those fragments, healing them. For similar to how DKs works, where like it's a percentage of healing and then also the damage you took. That made no sense. So the healing, it heals you for the damage you recently took plus like a base amount. So they nerfed that. They did something weird. Like, so this is a weird thing to break down. So they nerfed Soul Cleave. I think it's a nerf. Demon Hunters in chat, you'll have to correct me. Please be polite, because I don't know too much about this spec. And this is worded weird. So essentially what they did is they essentially buffed the additional healing for each soul fragment consumed up by, I don't know, like 40% or whatever that is. So 15% increase based off attack power. So this is the multiplier here. But they nerfed the Soul Cleave heal. So the additional healing they buffed, but the regular healing they nerfed. And I think this is supposed to try to balance the healing and it's trying to make the Demon Hunter focus more on making sure that they're actually soul cleaving with fragments instead of just using soul cleave as a heal. Correct me if I'm wrong. They have some multipliers here. I don't exactly know how to break this down entirely. So help me out on that one. And then lastly, they had some talent nerfs as well. We see a nerf to Demonic, which is a talent choice, which is what caused Fell Devastation to be so powerful, because after you Fell Devastate and heal yourself up, you go into basically a mini metamorphosis. So it was similar to how Gluttony works in BFA, and now it's reduced from 8 to 6 seconds. The 8 seconds was nice because it allowed Demon Hunters to not only be extremely tanky and put out a little bit more damage and healing and whatnot and have increased armor, but it allowed them to like spend time not having to worry about their demon spikes and their active mitigation. So that was unfortunate. And then also Feast of Souls, the attack power multiplier was nerfed for the healing. So a lot of nerfs to their health, their healing, and their self-sustainability. So you're going to rely on your healer a little bit more. And there's also a few buffs. There was a few buffs to the Immo aura, it looks like. The attack power was increased, so there might be a new build that comes out which focuses a little bit more on keeping like Immo aura up. If not, that's already the meta build, no pun intended. And then Metamorphosis damage was buffed a little bit, but most of these changes seem to be part of a lot happened with Havoc as well. So that was most of it for Demon Hunter. So just big F. I'm really sorry, guys. It does put you guys a little bit more in line, but not where you probably want to be. So Demon Hunter, unfortunately, looking a little bit lower than they were previously. So let's jump into Druid, my bread and butter. We cry out for magic mitigation. They increase the armor that we get from our Iron Fur by 10%. So congratulations, you can now mitigate magic or physical damage a wee bit better, but it doesn't really matter. This change, I don't think is very valuable. Again, we have to look at logs. We have to look to see how much damage Guardian Druids are going to be mitigating, especially on the physical damage front. There are a lot of physical damage, like damaging abilities in dungeons, which is a good thing. So Iron Fur actually will play out to be good. But on the flip side, like it's still the issue is with Earth Warden healing throughput, as well as just their healing throughput in general. Like we got Renewal back, which is great, but Frenzied Regen being nerfed. Yes, cool. Guardian Druids have Mastery, which means they take increased healing, but the Mastery value is so low right now. I know a lot of you guys have been commenting this. I'll have to go back and look at logs, and maybe in the next video I do when future logs are posted, I can take a look at this, but I don't think you can't justify their Mastery currently with how low the value is. Like a fresh Guardian Druid, like right now at like level 60, has like 4 to 6% Mastery. It's so low, so it doesn't really contribute that much. So anyways, long story short, a little buff to Iron Fur. Good news all around, though we'd like to see more changes, whether it's healing throughput or some kind of magic mitigation or something along those lines. But for now, we'll leave it at that. Sorry, monks, you got a big nerf. Celestial Brew was nerfed by roughly 40%. Check my math on that one. I did not graduate from college with a mathematics degree. So 40% nerf to their healing, which was a heal that was doing about 50% of their healing. So I would say overall about a 20% nerf to their overall healing throughputs. Pretty tragic. But on top of that, the cooldown was doubled. So pretty bad. Celestial Brew is just so overpowered. I mean, I think this is justified. I think this is a justifiable nerf. And I think it'll put them a little bit more in line with the other tanks. But good news is Stagger is such a strong passive mitigation that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's just going to limit you in like higher keys because that healing throughput is insane to have. So without it, it's going to be a little bit harder. They also changed the recharge rate of Purifying Brew up by 5 seconds. So another 33% increase to the recharge rate. Not Guardian, Monk, Brewmaster Monk never really needed to drop Stagger all that often, meaning like not as consistent as every 15 seconds. So this shouldn't be too big of a change. It might mean you rely a little bit on more like not dropping combat, but getting away from the fight for a little bit while Stagger falls, or to avoid some of that damage just so you can have a balanced recharge rate. But it shouldn't be an issue because you have 2 charges of this, so it doesn't really matter. And then they got a buff to Shuffle, so just doing your base rotation is kind of like a passive way to actively mitigate. So this is a good change. So Stagger is going to be more effective, but on the other hand, your healing was nerfed pretty significantly. So we'll have to see how this plays out. There are some small changes with conduits and the potency conduits and the damage that they do to try to, I think, put them in line a little bit more and the multipliers for that. I'm not going to go over this in this video. I plan on doing conduits for a different time. So I don't know how these changes are going to play part, but for the survivability and in the base specialization, monks did get nerfed a fair bit. So I think they won't drop as far as like Demon Hunters will drop in popularity, but monks definitely got hit. So all right, Paladin. A lot of you guys were asking me about Paladin. I like Paladin. Paladin will probably be my second tank, and I just said Paladin a lot in the last couple seconds here, so maybe I'll cut that out, maybe I won't. Shining Light. This was a change to Bastion of Glory. Every 5 shields that you cast, or every 5 Shield of the Righteous, you get a Word of Glory free. I do like this change to Shining Light. I think this change is good. I like that it's a little bit more focused on Shield of the Righteous uptime than having to like choose between kind of like rotating between Shield of the Righteous and then like Word of Glory healing. I think this change is good, but if you're a Paladin main and you think this is bad, please let me know why you think it's bad. I'm actually curious because I've had some people ask me, how do I feel about the Bastion of Glory nerf? I mean, it wasn't really nerfed. It was changed completely. I think this will allow people to focus on Shield of the Righteous more, because every time you use 5 of them, you get a free Word of Glory, which is awesome, which means you don't have to consume Holy Power, which means you can like either top off your healer or top off yourself, because the healing of Word of Glory was doubled based off of your missing health, which is a really good change. Originally, this was 200% coming out of BFA. It was nerfed down to 150, and now it's 300. So Word of Glory, it's a good buff. I like this. And a little bit more focus on doing Shield of the Righteous, which I think fits into the playstyle currently of Paladin on beta, which is just trying to do as much damage as possible with Shield of the Righteous. And I think it just suits that playstyle with the couple of legendary effects, which I'll talk about at some point maybe. I'm sure there's Paladins out there who are way smarter than I am, so maybe you guys can go venture out and try to find that kind of content. If not, I will do my best to try to cover that in the future. They also buffed Shield of the Righteous and the amount of armor you're going to get per strength by 30%. So this was a pretty good buff. This means when Shield of the Righteous is up, you're going to be very, very sturdy against some of those incoming damage effects. And then obviously Word of Glory was changed. So all around, I think pretty good changes to Paladin. Nothing that's like game changing, but I just think like it's a slight rework that just makes them feel a little bit better and focusing on their mitigating instead of their healing, but using that healing as like a utility. That free healing is going to have them like give them that global where they might not have any charges literally of anything. They have no judgment, no shield, and no hammer, and they can just be like, oh, we're going to just like cast out a free heal. So I like it. And then lastly, we're going to talk about Warrior, the forgotten tank. Got a additional, like, it's essentially their armor is going to be increased. So Vanguard is a passive ability that they have in their toolkit that just increases their stamina and increases their overall like armor just based off of their strength. So their core value, their core like main stat value. Pretty significant buff, 25 up to 40. I don't know the exact math on that, but like a 30% buff to your armor. So it's looking pretty good. So them just in general, without even shield block being up or including shield block, just really steady, solid tanks against physical damage. Again, Magic didn't. Same with Guardian Druid. Magic mitigation is just, they're kind of like their weak link right now. So those were the quick changes. I do want to hint on one thing. Not hints. I want to talk about one thing. I've mentioned this legendary in my last video. I want to talk about it here because I think it's important. Because a lot of tanks whose toolkit isn't optimized well have been using this legendary. Like Warriors being an example. I've seen a lot of Demon Hunters using this. I've seen Paladins use this as well, though there is a different thing for Paladin to use. But for tankiness, this was a very overpowered legendary. So Vitality Sacrifice, the first time you damage an elite, you absorb basically a multiplier based off your attack power or spell power times your versatility. This, for most tanks, was giving them like a 12,000 damage absorb shield. Tanks right now at like a fresh like 60, level 60 character will have, I don't know, this will absorb about anywhere between 10 and 12,000 damage for the first elite that they hit. The big change that they made is that you may only have one shield active at a time, and this can now only occur once every minute. It used to just like be active every time you were hitting things, and it would just do so much damage and reflection that like tanks who weren't tanky or able to heal a lot were just doing like kind of reasonable things. Like Warriors were actually able to tank dungeons, which was awesome. But like I mentioned in my last video when I was looking at Warrior healing, the only reason some Warriors were healing so high was because of this legendary, and it was doing like 30 to 40% of their healing, which is just insane. So this was nerfed, as you guys can see. So that's pretty much it. That's what the nerfs and changes nerfs and buffs were looking like, and some of the reworks, and then as well as that legendary. So let's revisit our tier list really quick because this video is getting quite long. All right, so we're gonna start with Blood Decay. Blood Decay, I think, is in a good spot. I think it was wasn't a lot of changes to it. I think it's looking like a solid option. We're gonna try to keep in mind the damage profile of the dungeon that we looked at, which was Sanguine Depths. DK's looking pretty good. No changes really. Small change to a talent and passive ability that were flopped. I think they're fine. I think they're staying in the A tier. Monks, nerf to healing. I think we'll put them in the B tier. Stagger is still super strong. Their healing won't be as good, but a good tank who can manage their stagger with obviously the right composition is going to be successful in almost all situations. They have a pretty good toolkit with from stuns to off healing to like different kind of CC abilities like incapacitate and things like that. I think just monks are going to be a good choice. Ring of Peace is obviously really, really strong as well. Paladin is going to change. I'm gonna keep in the B tier as well. I think they're performing well, at least at the level that we looked at. I've been told that Paladins above level 10 key currently on beta were struggling to keep themselves alive. Right now, there's this like everyone's kind of running this similar build where they're just able to put out like a mass amount of damage, but because of that, they're losing their healing. So I'm not sure if that's maybe, or not healing, but survivability. And I don't know if that's contributing to their unsuccessful attempts at dungeons. So I'm not sure yet, but I'll have to look at logs, and I'll get to that in a second. Demon Hunters, I think the nerfs were pretty significant enough to put them down to the C/D tier. I don't think they're bad enough to be in the D tier. I think they're still going to be good tanks. The nerf to their survivability was kind of bad, but they do a lot of damage. A good bit of damage, I should say, not a great amount. I think there's other tanks that can do a lot more damage than they can. Their healing was nerfed, and their like tankiness was nerfed. That's why like I would say they're almost in the D tier, but I'm going to put them like, if I could, like low C tier. I think Guardian Druids, despite me going with the D tier originally in the first video, I do think that they actually are good enough to be in the C tier. I think it's a tank that's going to be playable. It's going to be acceptable. With the right person behind that tank, I think they can perform. But I think just kind of in its entirety, I think just baseline as a character, trying to be as objective as possible, I think Guardian Druid is going to sit kind of middle of the pack. So maybe just above Demon Hunter. And then lastly, Warrior. So Warrior was changed, and this change is hard because their talent tree is still messed up. Not all their shit still works. Their Covenant choices aren't that great for like Covenant like base abilities. Some of their Soulbind trees are okay, and their conduits are fine, but their armor was buffed. So I would put them at the very, very bottom, if anything, of the C tier. Like, and that's because I just feel bad putting them in the D tier. But if we're gonna just keep them in the D tier just for kind of visual perspective, I think this is how the tanking meta is going to look. I think DKs are going to probably end up being the best tank unless we see some more nerfs. And I think Warriors are still at the bottom. I think the Demon Hunters were a little too much. I do agree with a lot of players that I think Blizzard kind of overdid it with this one. They buffed their damage a little bit, but they nerfed everything else about the class. Their survivability and their tankiness, as well as their sustainability just without a healer. So like their core healing. I just feel bad for Demon Hunters, to be honest. They're a class that hasn't performed that well in the Mythic Dungeon competitive scene for a while now, and it'd be nice to see them move up a little bit, but Blizzard obviously doesn't want them to be that. So that's what I think of the changes. That's what I think of the current beta build. Again, things are subject to change. I will try to create content as content comes out. Warcraft logs, because the way that keys were changed on beta, we can no longer just buy keys. We have to actually run them and upgrade them and do all that fun stuff. So it's going to take time to get accurate information to try to cross-compare a lot of these tanks. So I'm hoping to do that in the near future, but only time will tell. If you guys like to see content like this, and if you like my opinion, and if you like my tie, please consider hitting that like button and hitting that subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. I figured we'd have to kind of suit up and get all official about this kind of stuff because it's getting close to Shadowlands, so that's why I'm dressed like this. Also, I just got home from work and decided to sit down. I had a long day. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you're doing the dishes, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care.